Supreme Commander Vex'thor of the Kalrathian Empire stood before the holographic display, mandibles clicking in what his species considered amusement. Before him floated images of human weapons captured from preliminary scans of Earth's military installations. Chemical propellants, he announced to his assembled war council, his 4 eyes gleaming with condescension. They still use chemical propellants to launch metal projectiles. Our ancestors abandoned such primitive technology 3,000 cycles ago. His tactical officer, Gendar, manipulated the display to show more human military assets. Wars, Commander. They store volatile explosives in metal casings. Their vessels use nuclear fission for power generation. They even maintain surface-based launch facilities that would be obliterated in the opening moments of any real conflict. The council chamber filled with the chittering laughter of the Kalrathian High Command. For 6 months, they had observed the humans, cataloging their defenses, mapping their installations, analyzing their capabilities. The conclusion was unanimous. Humanity would fall within a week of the Empire's assault. They call their world a garden paradise, Vex'thor mused, pulling up imagery of Earth's blue oceans and green continents. A single, temporary planet. They evolved without real challenge, without the crushing gravity and toxic atmospheres that forge true warriors. They know nothing of strength. What Vex'thor didn't know, what his entire species failed to comprehend, was that Earth was classified in the galactic xenobiology databases as a Class 12 Deathworld. They never checked. Why would they? The humans seemed so soft, so technologically backward. It was their first mistake. It would not be their last. 3 weeks later, the Kalrathian Fourth Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 200 warships, each armed with plasma cannons and quantum disruptors, advanced in perfect formation. Admiral Krellmost, commanding from his flagship Inevitable Conquest, opened a channel to Earth. Primitive humans, his translated message boomed across all frequencies. Your civilization ends today. Surrender. And we should consider allowing some of you to serve us. Resist, and face extinction. The response came not from Earth's diplomatic corps, but from Admiral Marcus Chen of the United Earth Defense Force, broadcasting from UED's Indomitable. You want to dance? Then let's dance. All human vessels weapons free. Show these bastards what happens when you pick a fight with a Deathworld species. Krellmost barely had time to process the response before the void erupted in violence. The human fleet numbered only 80 ships, smaller vessels by Kalrathian standards, but what they lacked in size, they compensated for in sheer, savage creativity. The first volley wasn't energy weapons or exotic particles. It was metal. Lots of metal. Railgun rounds, each weighing several tons, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The Kalrathian shields, designed to disperse energy weapons, might as well have been tissue paper. Kinetic energy doesn't care about frequency modulation or phase variance. Mass times velocity, simple physics, devastating results. Kinetic impact detected. The tactical display shrieked aboard the Inevitable Conquest. Hull breach sections 12 through 19. Casualty count critical. Impossible. Krellmost's claws dug into his command throne. They're using solid projectiles. How are solid projectiles penetrating our shields? His weapons officer frantically worked the controls. Sir, our shields are energy-based. These are physical objects traveling at relativistic speeds. The shield generators can't compensate fast enough. The second wave hit before he could finish. Missiles, thousands of them, not guided by sophisticated quantum entanglement or dimensional folding, but by good old-fashioned chemical rockets and computer guidance. Systems that were unhackable because they were too simple to hack. Each warhead carried either a nuclear payload or a cluster of submunitions that scattered like deadly seeds. This isn't possible, Krellmost thought as another ship on his display winked out of existence. We studied them. We prepared. They're primitives. But primitives don't coordinate like humans coordinated. Every ship in the Earth fleet moved with practiced precision, executing maneuvers that exposed Kalrathian vessels to overlapping fields of fire. Fighter craft, tiny things with chemical propellant weapons, swarmed capital ships like angry insects, targeting sensor arrays and weapon emplacements with surgical precision. Sir, his communications officer called out. We're detecting massive electronic warfare activity. Our targeting systems are being jammed. Our communications are being flooded with false data. And something is attempting to infiltrate our navigation computers. Cyber warfare. Of course, humans had spent decades preparing to fight each other in the digital realm. Their entire civilization was built on computers fighting other computers. The Kalrathians, who relied on quantum-encrypted systems that no one in the galaxy had ever breached, found themselves vulnerable to thousands of years of human hacking evolution. Captain Sarah Rodriguez, commanding the destroyer Retribution, watched her tactical display with grim satisfaction. Target that battlecruiser. All tubes, magnetic acceleration to maximum. Fire. The railgun spoke, silent in the vacuum but deadly nonetheless. Tungsten penetrators, shaped for maximum kinetic energy transfer, punched through Kalrathian armor like it wasn't there. Hit confirmed, her weapons officer reported. Their shield geometry can handle multiple, simultaneous kinetic impacts from different vectors. They're designed for energy weapon duels. Then let's give them more angles to worry about, Rodriguez commanded. Helm, bring us about. Missiles away, full spread. Target their engine clusters. The Kalrathian Fourth Fleet, which had entered the system with such confidence, found itself bleeding and desperate within the first hour of engagement. Admiral Krillmost, watching his forces disintegrate, made the hardest decision of his military career. All ships, retreat vector Alpha 7, maximum acceleration. We must regroup and... He never finished the order. A human stealth vessel, undetectable, because it ran cold and used passive sensors only, had positioned itself for the perfect ambush. A single nuclear-tipped missile, the kind of weapon the Kalrathians considered hopelessly outdated, struck the inevitable conquest amidships. The explosion vaporized 3 decks and crippled the flagship. On the ground, the Kalrathian invasion force discovered their own nightmare. They had landed troops on what they thought would be an easy occupation of major cities. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that had refined urban warfare to an art form over centuries of brutal, unforgiving experience. Ground Commander Vex'thor watched in horror as his mechanized infantry unit was torn apart in the ruins of Chicago. The humans didn't fight fair. They used improvised explosives hidden in rubble. They employed chemical smoke that played havoc with Kalrathian sensors. They attacked from sewers, from buildings, from directions that shouldn't have had any military value. Fall back, he transmitted to his forces. Regroup at the landing zone. But there was no landing zone anymore. Human artillery, those primitive tube-launched explosive projectiles, had zeroed in on their position with terrifying accuracy. Guided munitions, old-fashioned forward observers, and fire direction computers that predated the Kalrathian Empire turned the landing zone into a killing field. They're using fragmentation weapons. One of his officers screamed over the comm. Pieces of metal flying through the air. It's barbaric. Barbaric, perhaps, but effective. Kalrathian body armor could stop energy weapons. It wasn't designed for hundreds of steel fragments traveling at supersonic speeds. Master Sergeant John Hammer Harrison, leading a Marine unit through the ruins, allowed himself a cold smile. 26 years in the Corps, 3 wars, more combat deployments than he cared to count. The brass had asked if humanity was ready to fight aliens. He'd told them the truth, sir. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We're really, really good at it. Hammer, we've got more of the bugs in Sector 7, his second-in-command reported. Roger that. Williams, set up the Madus on that corner. Chen, get your anti-armor team in position. We're going to introduce these things to a weapon that's older than spaceflight and still kills just fine. The M2 Browning heavy machine gun, designed in 1901, proved that some technologies don't become obsolete. They become classic. 12.7mm rounds tore through Kalrathian combat armor, like it was aluminum foil in orbit. The tide had turned decisively. The Kalrathian Fourth Fleet, or what remained of it, attempted to flee the system. Admiral Chen, his face grim but satisfied, gave the pursuit order. All vessels, press the attack. Don't let a single one of these ships report back what happened here. I want them to send another fleet, unprepared, expecting easy prey. Let's teach the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. The human fleet pursued with relentless efficiency. More railgun rounds, more missiles, more of those primitive kinetic weapons that the Kalrathians had so foolishly dismissed. Ship after ship fell, their hulls breached, their crews exposed to the vacuum or consumed by secondary explosions. Aboard one of the few surviving Kalrathian vessels, a young officer named Velshuk transmitted everything he had witnessed back to the Empire. The message would take weeks to arrive, but it would change everything. They don't. Fight with honor, he recorded, his voice shaking. They don't follow our rules of engagement. They use every advantage, exploit every weakness, and they never ever stop coming. We thought their weapons were primitive, but it's not about sophistication. It's about effectiveness. And their weapons are devastatingly effective. He paused, looking at the images of destroyed Kalrathian ships on his screen. We made a terrible mistake. We judged them by our standards, by our evolution. But Earth isn't a gentle world. It's a planet of predators, of survivors, of creatures that clawed their way to the top of the food chain by being more vicious, more adaptable, and more creative than anything else on their world. We attacked a civilization that evolved through constant warfare, that refined the art of killing over millennia. His recording continued, describing human tactics, human weapons, human psychology. It would become required viewing at the Kalrathian War College. Other species hearing of the debacle took note. In the aftermath, cleanup crews found the wreckage of 200 Kalrathian warships scattered across Earth's solar system. Human casualties had been significant, but not catastrophic. More importantly, humanity had sent a message to the galaxy. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at Earth through the viewport. Blue, green, beautiful. A world of water and oxygen and moderate temperatures. A world that looked like paradise. But paradise had created apex predators. Humans had evolved competing with megafauna, surviving ice ages, fighting diseases, and most importantly, fighting each other. Every weapon system in humanity's arsenal had been refined in blood, tested in war, improved through bitter experience. The Kalrathians had developed their weapons through theoretical exercises and simulation. Humans had developed theirs through 10,000 years of trial, error, and survival. Sir, his communications officer called out. We're receiving diplomatic overtures from 17 different species. They all want to negotiate non-aggression pacts. Chen nodded slowly. Tell them we're open to discussion. But make it clear humanity doesn't start fights. We finish them. As news of the battle spread through the galaxy, a new understanding emerged. Humans didn't have the most advanced technology. They didn't have the most powerful weapons. What they had was something far more dangerous, the mindset of survivors, the creativity of problem solvers, and the determination of a species that had clawed its way to the stars through sheer, bloody-minded refusal to quit. In a tavern on a distant space station, a grizzled mercenary who had heard the news raised his glass. Here's to the humans, he said to his companions. They weaponized everything, their rocks, their bombs, their creativity, even their stubbornness. The Kalrathians asked what humans had weaponized. The answer? Everything. They weaponized everything. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson, written in the wreckage of the Kalrathian Fourth Fleet. Never underestimate a Deathworld species. Never dismiss weapons as primitive. And never, ever pick a fight with humans unless you're prepared to discover just how creative a species can be when it comes to finding new and terrifying ways to win. Because when humanity goes to war, they don't just bring weapons. They bring 10,000 years of experience in the most brutal endeavor any species can undertake. They bring innovation, adaptation, and an unshakable belief that survival isn't just possible, it's mandatory. The Kalrathian Empire, humbled and shocked, withdrew from human space. Other species, watching and learning, made note. Earth, that beautiful blue marble spinning in space, became marked in galactic databases with a single, clear warning that would save countless lives in the years to come. Warning, inhabited by humans. Approach with extreme caution. Do not engage militarily. Do not threaten. Do not underestimate. Deathworld species. Highly aggressive when threatened. Extremely creative combatants. Will weaponize anything available. Recommend diplomatic contact only. And in the halls of human military command, as medals were awarded and casualties were mourned, a new motto was unofficially adopted, spread through every branch of Earth's defense forces. It was simple, direct, and absolutely true. We're not the strongest, we're not the smartest, but we're the ones who never gave up, never surrendered, and never stopped finding new ways to win. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us dangerous.